Hey there, Marco Kozlowski here, excited to share with you tips, tricks, techniques, and anything that you need to know in order to buy as much real estate as you want using very creative strategies that I've developed over the last 20 years. Now, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have, it doesn't matter what your credit is or isn't. You could be a monk living in the Himalayas as long as there's an internet connection, or living right next door to the property that you're going to buy. It doesn't really matter where you are, what your background is, and you can pretty much do this from anywhere. So it's a very exciting process, and I'm excited to share with you some phenomenal content over the next few episodes. In fact, all my episodes, so you can really understand what my approach is, what my philosophy is, what my mindset is, and what it takes in order to buy as many units as you want. Now, if you didn't know, I own thousands of units across the country, buy around 1,500 units a year with me and my followers, and it's a lot of fun. And if you can't have fun doing something, you shouldn't be doing it at all. In fact, if you're in a job that you don't like, it's terrible, because that's worse than almost being in a relationship that you don't like. Because if you don't like the relationship, you can always get another one, but sometimes, we're set in our ways when you're working the 9 to 5 for someone that you don't like at all, and or just don't like what you're doing, and time passes very slowly, and it's very hard to shift if your income and your family's income is supported by something that you absolutely can't stand. So with that said, I'm not super passionate about real estate. Real estate is not like, oh my gosh, I get up in the morning and I wish I could buy more real estate. Not really at all how it works. I just created processes. It's a side hustle. It's something that I do on the side. My free time is very important to me. I spend as much time with my kids as I can. And my values and my priorities are really being the best dad that I can be, and helping others having more free time, and not buying into the lies that time is money. I'll have an episode on that, where money comes from. Most people don't understand money, and how money can be created pretty much out of thin air if you understand it. And how to buy really as many cash flowing assets without using your money, without needing any credit, using asset-based lending as the vehicle in order to do that. Now, I'm throwing out a lot of big words, but I assure you by the end of this, you're really going to understand it. I'm going to try to make it fun. I try to do everything in a really fun, light way, and I'm not going to try to offend anyone. I'm going to say this right off the top. I'm originally Canadian. We don't like to offend anybody. We're sorry about everything, and my intent is never to hurt anyone's feelings or offend anyone. But I know in this climate of political correctness, no matter what I say, I know someone's going to get their panties in a twist. So again, I'm just going to say it like it is. I'm not going to tell anyone what they want to hear. I'm always going to say what you need to hear, since my passion is mentoring and helping people achieve financial freedom using resources that are around you that you didn't even know you had. So if you don't know that you can do something, you don't do it, and that obviously costs you the opportunity. And in some cases, that's millions of dollars a year. In fact, in this case, it's millions of dollars a year. And ignorance is very expensive. And what I love about knowledge is once you have it, no one can take it away from you. You can have absolutely nothing and rebuild, which is exactly what I had to do, because when I first started this real estate journey, I was broke. I was a concert pianist living in Canada, making $10,000 Canadian a year, which is like $5 American. It's not much. I had 4 kids, got married at 18. And I do things very quickly, and was a stay-at-home dad. My spouse worked incredibly long hours, and we never had enough money. We always had way more a month than we had money, and it created a lot of stress in our family. Now, all joking aside, I have nothing against my ex-wife. We're very good friends. Holidays, we're always together with the kids. My kids are all in college, and we've never had a problem together. It was 12 great years together, but we had really financial hardships during that 12 years, and it sadly broke us apart, because I don't know if you're aware, the number one cause of divorce is marriage. No, just kidding. It's actually money, and it was difficult not having any money ever. And after a spat, I can't sleep. I'm, stressed out of my mind. I know we have a ton of bills coming up. I don't know how we're going to even get through the week, let alone pay rent that's coming up, that we're already behind on. I've been evicted twice in the last 60 days. I was in a really crappy spot. And I see this infomercial of people making all this money in real estate. I had never even known the potential of real estate. Again, my background is music, and my parents come from a very meager Eastern European wartime. They immigrated during the war, and they're just very simple people. And I just didn't know anything about real estate, so I was like in awe that all these people could make that much money. And it seemed that you didn't need money and you didn't need credit, and they had this course that you could buy, which I really didn't have the money for. So I borrowed my mother's credit card, and I knew that if I didn't pay her back, my parents would absolutely kill me. So I knew that whatever I learned, I had to apply quickly, because this was really the only solution that I could see in order for me to get out of my hardship. And I knew I was going to be in financial prison for the rest of my life if I didn't do something about it. I was tired of not sleeping. I was tired of fighting with my spouse. I was tired of not having any money, and I was, I don't want to be, repeating an old comment that I'm sure you've heard a million times, but I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was done. So I, took a class and learned some things. Was fortunate enough to sit next to a few people that had done a few deals already, and I learned and I applied, and then I took whatever small money I made, because I first learned how to wholesale, which is, if you don't know what that is, it's basically tying up a property under contract and then selling the contract for a little bit of cash. And then I started doing more and more deals and more complex deals. And I went from doing wholesaling to buying single-family properties, to buying multi-units, to buying mobile home parks, to buying hotels, which is where I am now after 20 years. So I took the first step. I learned and applied as much as I could. And it's been quite a journey over the last 20 years. I've done a lot of things that don't work. I've taken seminar after seminar after seminar, and I'm not going to regurgitate any information that you've most likely heard before. A lot of this stuff that I'm going to share with you is quite fresh. It's new for you. I've been developing these processes over the last 20 years, and my approach is very different than what you might have heard before. Now, if this is your first real estate experience, that's great. I'm going to tell you what actually does work and what actually I am applying today. As I most likely mentioned already, buy about 1,500 units a year with myself and my followers. I teach, I mentor, and I partner with a select group of students, and we share these profits. Now, of course, of the thousands of units I own, I don't own them all personally. They're all not in, I don't own everything 100%. Some I own 100% for my own deals, and some I own small pieces of, and some I own big pieces of. But every little piece makes me cash flow. And what I love about real estate, the way that I'm going to share with you how you can empower yourself, because if you know what to do, that can never be taken away from you. You can never lose that knowledge. Once your mind expands, it can never go back to what it was before. You can't unlearn something. So if you were to be fired tomorrow, or have a terrible accident, which I don't wish upon anyone, knock on wood if there's any wood anywhere, I want you to have the ability, if this is something that you're interested in, to, from anywhere, create money without having to use any of your own money. And I know that sounds impossible and a dream, or some pitch, but it's really not. If you see how I do things and see how I've laid things out over the next little while, hopefully that you'll stick around to learn this stuff, you're going to see how simple I've made this. I want to make sure that you understand that this is very simple, but it's not necessarily easy. There are going to be some things that are going to be counterintuitive, that are going to sound like, yeah, that makes sense, but when you apply them, it's not as easy as you expected. But anyway, I'm also excited because I get to help you full time, meaning that you don't have to take 20 years of very expensive mistakes, of terrible things that, terrible decisions that I made, that some I'm not proud of because I didn't know any better. You don't have to go through that painful process, because I really didn't have a choice. And you're in a great spot where I've made the mistakes. I'm going to share with you the best possible path to take, the shortcuts that you can take, so you can essentially cheat, meaning that you can just look over my shoulder and do the right thing. I have all the answers, and you can actually just cheat and get the answers that you need in order to be very, very successful in a much shorter time of than it ever took me. In fact, I wish I knew me 20 years ago I would have done it in probably 2 years instead of 20. But I had to go through the journey in order to not only learn it for myself, but empower others as well, like yourself, to be able to achieve very similar results in a very short period of time. I just want to give you as much amazing content as possible. I want to share with you that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what your background is. If you've, whatever your preconceptions are, I'm going to make sure that that you really understand the philosophies and the mindsets and everything that goes with real estate. And of course, more millionaires and billionaires have been created with real estate than anything else on the planet. And most wealthy people, they work really hard, they save up money, and then they buy real estate. And then with that cash flow that they make, they save up and they buy more real estate. And eventually the real estate income replaces the income they have. When they sell, they get all this cash and then they can reinvest it. And in my opinion, that's like the worst way to buy real estate. Because A, you have to save money that you're working hard for, where you don't need the money if you're buying it for the right price, which we're going to get into. It takes a lot of time, and time is not our friend. We don't know how long we're going to have on this planet. We just don't. And time is precious to me. In fact, I'll discuss how time is much more valuable than money. And I just don't want to have to do that. I want to go straight to buying assets without having to save money, go to a bank and have them decide if I'm approved or not, and have the bank have their meat hooks into my credit, where if one thing goes wrong, I lose everything, which is how a lot of people buy property, which is actually quite risky. And they don't have the right asset protection in place, which of course I'm also going to get into, because that's really important. Making sure you buy it right, make sure you have the right property management in place, and the right asset protection is something that is extremely important as you build out your portfolio. Real estate has some great tax advantages as well. In fact, there are 4 ways to get paid on every single transaction. There's, of course, the cash flow, where every month you're getting cash flow. If you're buying things right, you should have cash flow. I don't buy any property unless there's cash flow on a monthly basis. I know there's a lot of people that buy a lot of property and they're in a negative cash flow position. Like in Australia, there's something called negative gearing. What that means is that you buy the property and you're losing money every month, but you can take that loss and apply it towards your taxes. So it's basically a scheme from the government to buy more property, but you're losing money every month. You're just removing it from the taxes that you have to pay. That's not really sustainable, because if you buy enough property, you're not going to have enough income in order to actually sustain the loss, which just doesn't make any sense. So every single property that I'm going to show you how to buy, and I'm going to be as detailed as you wish me to be during this series, it's forbidden not to buy it unless you have instant cash flow. So I want to make money the second that I buy it. Hopefully that's super clear. So with that cash flow, we also have something from the government, the U.S. government. Again, I'm Canadian, I'm from Montreal, but since I'm buying properties in the U.S., I'm subject to U.S. tax law and anything that happens in the U.S. So when I buy a property, or when you buy a property, you get a deduction called depreciation. And for every $1 million of property that you buy, you actually get $36,000 or so in depreciation credits, which means that if you have $3 million in assets, the first $100,000 in cash flow that you make is tax-free. So when you see your paycheck now, if you get a paycheck if you're an employee, the government already took their money before you even see the paycheck. In fact, the government gets paid first. But in real estate, you actually get paid first, and then the government gets paid second after you start making some money. And I know you might be thinking, I'll never buy $3 million of real estate, but if I can share with you how to buy it using none of your own money, none of your own credit, it's not hard before you amass $3 million in assets. It's actually, it can happen very quickly. Again, this is only if you want to learn more, and if you stick around, you're going to learn all this stuff. So depreciation is great. So you get cash flow, you get a tax savings, which is even better. You have amortization, which is there's a mortgage on every property that we buy. And I'm going to get into good debt versus bad debt, because I know there's schools of thought where getting a mortgage is bad, or getting into debt is bad. And there are some very bad debts. Like, there's some things you should never do. I'm not going to get into this now, but there's some good debt where if you're making money on the money, it just makes sense. So if I have a mortgage and my mortgage is $5,000 and I'm making $20,000, does it make sense to get a mortgage for $5,000 if I'm making $20,000? I'm netting out 15, right? I got to pay 5 and I'm making 20, and that leaves me with 15. So of course it makes sense, and then don't have to use my own money. It's even better. Again, we're going to get into those things a little bit later in other videos and other podcasts, in other whatever form that you're listening to or watching this right now. But I'll share with you how that actually works and is possible for you to get involved in. So there's the cash flow, there's the depreciation, there's the amortization, meaning that it's going to pay itself off. So every property that I buy, if I buy a property today, in 20 years, the property's paid for, which means that it's all cash flow. And that all gets passed on to my kids, which is phenomenal. There's no debt. It's fabulous. So it pays itself off. So that's super awesome. And then there's, of course, appreciation, which means that you can, the property is going to go up in value. Property that we buy today might go up and down in value as time goes on. You know, in '08, there was a huge crash, but the market's recovered. Everything is worth more than it was then. So even though it took some time to recover, it does eventually recover. You know, a mountain doesn't go straight up. It goes up and down. There's always market corrections. There's always ups and downs in the market, but there always is appreciation. And you can actually, with multifamily or mobile home parks or even hotels, you can do forced appreciation, where you raise the rents or raise the rate, and that goes straight to your bottom line. If I raise the rent $5 and there's a 200-unit building, it adds up quickly, and I'll share with you how that works in other podcasts, or other videos. But you'll get to see that. So there's 4 really great ways of getting paid. So of course there's the cash flow, which I'm hoping that you would love to have. If you want more cash flow, yay, that's great, because you can do more things with more cash flow. Everyone wants or should have more cash flow. And if you, again, aren't passionate about real estate, and let's say you love painting, well, if you had enough real estate for you to be just a stay-at-home painter and just paint all day long, you could. If you just like watching Netflix and chilling and you just want to watch everything possible that's on Netflix, if you had real estate that was paying for your bills, then you wouldn't have to work. You'd have real estate that took care of you. And that's the point, is you can have whatever passionate life of travel, of painting, if you want to drive a bus for a living, great, but have real estate sustain you so you can still drive your bus and you can do whatever you want and enjoy doing. If you want to give back to your church, your synagogue, your mosque, whatever you believe in, you can do that. And by having more money and more cash flow. So it really doesn't make sense for me for anyone to get involved in this. And that is why I've created this series, because I really want to make it accessible to anyone. I'm going to give as much content as I can for anyone to really get started, how to find great deals, what mindset you need, because mindset plays a big part of this. Because if you have a broke mindset that, you're a victim, I'll never be able to do this, everyone hates me, it's never going to happen, then you're probably right. It's never going to happen. A bumblebee is not supposed to be able to fly, but no one ever told it that it can. If you look at a bumblebee anatomically, it's not supposed to be able to fly, but they do. That's the point, is you can actually do something if you obviously not just believe in it, but have the tools and the resources to make it happen. And that is why this series has been started, as well as giving you a real path and a real plan for you to do this from anywhere in the world and not necessarily having any money. And again, these are actual things that I do on a daily basis with my followers, and I would love for you to do the same thing. Get out of the rat race, start making more passive income, realizing that you don't need a lot of time to do this. You don't need any money at all. In fact, if you have money, that's great. If you don't have any money, that's a separate problem. We'll have many episodes talking about money and how money works and how you can really create money out of thin air if you understand how money works and why money is everywhere. We're going to talk about that as well. So there's a lot of topics that I think are really important, and I'm really excited to share with you a lot of these insights that I've had. I'll have interviews as well with not only people that I've been working with, but other professionals that have also achieved phenomenal results in a very short period of time through real estate and creative real estate specifically. doing it differently than what most people think it is, because it's not just getting a mortgage 20% down, making sure you have good credit, because that's a very old way of buying assets, and that's the complete opposite of what I'm going to empower you with in this series. So roll up your sleeves, because over the next few episodes you're going to get a lot of content and some applicable tools that you can actually use and start doing things. And I'm really excited to see some great results. And remember, if you have anything that you want, any topic that you want me to talk about, please comment, and I will do my best to go as deep as I can on every episode with just the best content that you could possibly imagine. And in fact, I want to give you so much content, so much value that you think I'm crazy. And that's really what I'm looking for. So thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.